Welcome back, guys, to another video. We're going to be doing a history video today because of Mr. Flower. Hello guys, welcome back. I know you expected another video to be uploaded like gaming. Sorry guys, I had to do a history project. I chose the 1920s. It's a great period for music. Different like moral standards and prohibition happened. I'll explain later in the video what that is if you don't already know. And things like that. Automobiles, radios were invented, silent movies. Make sure you guys pay attention because there's going to be a kahoot at the end of the video. If you want to, you can take notes. I don't recommend taking notes because that just like kind of ruins the point of the video. This video is supposed to be fun. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed the video because it helps support me and my channel for doing this. And post in the comments like what decade you want me to do next. Speaking of decades, this decade is called the Roaring Twenties, 1920s. I'm really excited to do this because the 1920s is a really fun period to talk about. I had really had fun researching things like this, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get straight into it. First thing we're going to be talking about is the economic growth of the 1920s. Basically, guys, people bought the same thing like over and over again because of the new influx of money, because people were flocking from farms to urban areas. Like today, many more people live in cities rather than out in the farm. The United States wealth more than doubled in this 10-year span because of this. Basically, like this society where people are buying and buying and buying is called a consumer society. Consumer society is basically where buying and selling became the most important thing. And that's better than today because all we care about is entertainment. And people all over the U.S. bought the same goods, which is why it's called a consumer society. And this is because of radios, automobiles. People were like able to move everywhere and talk about things. And because of this new influx of money, many people were able to buy the new technologies like electric refrigerators, ready-made clothes, and especially radios. I was really surprised at ready-made clothes. I realized that back then it was you were like sew your own clothes, so ready-made clothes were definitely a new technology. And this leads into the next thing that I just talked about. Radios are next. Number 2 is radios, guys. Radios were a big part of the 1920s. It was like a new form of advertising. Like imagine owning a business, like Donald Trump owning a business, but like having no way to advertise, like walking around with signs saying, like. Indeed, great example. Anyway, guys, radios were definitely important. They created advertisements so West Coast could contact East Coast on what they wanted to buy. That is why the United States like went boom in the economy, because people bought the same goods over and over and over and over again. Like there were like radios in 12 million households. I didn't even know that many people in the United States in the 1920s. It's probably stupid of me, but exactly, I didn't even know there were many people. Very coincidental that the first airwaves went out in 1920s. The first radio like station was called the Pittsburgh KDKA. They sent out music. Like the first one was like election. It was like based off of the election. They just talked about the election, like the votes, things like that. Radios were very important economy. They kept things in here, which is basically what's very important. Radios leading to our next topic, which is going to be talking about automobiles. Radios were very important, but automobiles were a little bit more important. And also radios come in cars a little bit later, but we'll talk about that in a different video. Here comes automobiles. Very important for advertisement. People needed a way to transport like easily and cheaply, and that answer was automobiles. Automobiles had the biggest impact on life. Although saying that most people like fancy cars in our time, the Ferrari of this time was the Ford Model T. But mass production caused the prices of them to go down just to $260 by 1924, which is really cheap. By 1929, there was a car on every road for every 5 Americans. This caused a lot of things to happen. Businesses like service stations and motels sprang up to meet drivers' needs. This created a lot of jobs for Americans overall. Overall, this new technology allowed the people in the 1920s to be more connected, get around faster, and have more entertainment. Okay guys, moving on to the next topic, jazz. The Roaring Twenties were also called the Jazz Age for a reason. Jazz was the popular music of this era. Many young people, flappers, really love this music. They just love to express their freedom on the dance floor, things like that. Jazz was very popular. Well, it wasn't very popular among like the older people of this time. They thought it was like very immoral and things like that. This leads on to flappers. Flappers were young women with bobbed hair and short skirts. They did all the immoral things considering that time, like drinking and smoking. Flappers weren't just women who went out and did all the bad things. Some flappers were like women who just bought flapper clothing, but they didn't really do anything immoral like that. Like most women just didn't do anything at all. They just wore the clothing because they thought it was cool, like because it was cool. The flappers were a really big icon during the 1920s. Flappers kind of led into this topic, which we're gonna talk about next. And here it comes, the next topic. Yes, you're ready for it. But one specific freedom was taken away, and that's the importation, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages in the United States from 1920 to 1933. Again, coincidental with the 1920s, a lot of things happened in the year 1920, which made it a big decade. This was called Prohibition, and you're like wondering why the United States government issued this, and they issued it because they wanted to reduce crime and corruption, solve social problems, reduce tax burden created by prisons and poorhouses, and improve health and hygiene in America. Obviously, the United States thought that alcohol basically decreased like the lifestyle of Americans, especially in the U.S., and that's why they did it. Obviously, the people did not like it, but they just found ways around it. Essentially, a whole black market was created, like for alcohol. It made so much money that it was only second to the automobile industry. Prohibition did lessen the amount of alcoholics by 30%, but during this time, bootleggers produced millions of gallons of tainted beer, which is basically poisoning beer. Thousands of people died from this, and it caused people to go blind or to be poisoned, and Prohibition really hurt the U.S. more than it helped. Well, maybe. This leads on to our next topic, which is like racial discrimination groups, and here we go. Like almost the last topic, guys. We're going to be talking about the KKK, but the KKK weren't the only ones. There are also other racial discrimination groups, but mainly we're going to be talking about the KKK today just because of what happened with them. Guys, but why am I talking about the KKK? It's because like they were formed in the 1860s, so you're like, why am I talking about them? Well, I'm talking about them because their numbers boomed in the 1920s for some reason. They shot up from like 6,000 to 9,000 up to like 3 to 6 million. Well, that's what historians estimate. We don't know exactly why people suddenly took interest. Mainly, historians estimate or like think this because when African Americans or other like religious groups moved up north, caused like social discomfort. And that is what led them to unfortunately go into the KKK like organizations and things like that. But what did the KKK do? If they were just a group of people, like, yeah, you're like, okay, they tortured, which is like really bad. They tortured and murdered people. But like their main goal in the 1920s, which is what really made them big, was they tried to take over the government. Their goal was for each member to like recruit 10 members to vote for like a KKK member to be elected into the office. But they were like selected, and they would vote for them so that they could take over. They didn't take over like the national government or anything. Their presence was felt like throughout the United States though, but they did manage to take over like 2 state governments. I think it was like Colorado and Washington State, not Washington DC. Okay. Anyway, guys, but they did take over like cities, but they never took over like the whole country. They just over cities and 2 states, luckily. This leads on to the next topic. Thank you, guys. Now we're talking about the crime. 1920s wasn't just a good time for people who always followed the rules, like us schoolmates. The big criminal of this history was Al Capone. Al Capone is the leader of a street gang. At first, he just made money off of selling illegal liquor. Then he gained money in like status and numbers. He then started offering protection to stores and other businesses. If they didn't take the protection, bad things happened. Their stores were either robbed or burned down in the following nights. The police didn't care because they were paid off. Like, let's say the police were making $50 a week. Al Capone would go up to them and say, like, okay, let me burn down the store and I'll pay you $85 a week. He basically bribed the police, and it worked. Although he was put in prison in 1932 for tax evasion and got ill and died in 1947 from a heart attack. Although he wasn't a good person, he took advantage of Chicago and earned a lot of money. Illegal money, but money all the same.
Shut up! I don't care what you say, I'm gonna do my own thing. Shut up! And a voice in my head. Don't talk to me like that. I don't care what you say. You stupid voice in my head, you're listening to me. Oh, better be quiet.